Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining Scribe's webinar, Litigator's AI Arsenal, real-world tools to save time and strengthen cases. My name is Randy Brown. I'm with Scribe, and have the pleasure of introducing our speakers, Karl Seelbach, who's partner at Doyle and Seelbach, and Stephen Sachs, who's partner at Espinoza and Brock. Just some quick housekeeping. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. We'll answer them as quickly as we can. And the AI chat will email afterwards after this webinar. So without further ado, I'll hand it off over to Karl and Stephen, and thank you for joining.
All right, folks, thank you very much. Let me get the presentation kicked off. Stephen, can you see it okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, we are very excited to be here. We've got a lot of stuff to cover, so we're going to go relatively quickly, but we got to kick it off with intros. So, Stephen, a little more about yourself.
Yeah, sure. My name's Steve Sachs. Thanks everyone for joining. I'm a partner at Espinoza and Brock, been an attorney since 2011. I do personal injury litigation, car wrecks, dog bites, primarily workers' comp retaliation cases, employment litigation in San Antonio and surrounding areas.
Very good. Karl Seelbach here. I have been litigating now since 2006, and I am actually on the defense side of personal injury cases. Stephen and I have had cases against one another, but managed to come out the other end still friendly. So I appreciate Stephen joining me for the presentation today. When I'm not working with the Scribe team or at the law firm, you'll probably find me at a volleyball game. My two daughters, 13 and 9 years old, keep us very, very busy with club volleyball. For those of you who have kids in club sports, I'm sure you can relate. Well, Stephen, let's kind of kick it off big picture.
Yeah, sure. So let's start kind of with real talk. We all know litigation has some of those tasks that just eat up our time, right? Maybe it's drafting a demand letter that needs to be compelling enough to get their attention, but not so aggressive that it shuts down negotiations. Or how about creating like a medical timeline, going through hundreds of pages of records to build that kind of chronology? And then there's, the creative stuff that takes forever, like sitting there trying to come up with the perfect trial theme that'll resonate with jurors or brainstorming different angles of a case theory. Those moments where you're kind of staring at the blank page thinking there's got to be a better way to frame this. And so I think today, take time to think about kind of what takes up so much of your time. And the goal is how can we make you more efficient and share some ideas that we've been using in our practice.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we hope you walk away with for today is some real concrete workflows, some tools you can use literally today, tomorrow, to just sharpen your skills and also speed things up on your docket. So let me give you a little bit of a roadmap. A litigator always knows to give a good roadmap to the audience. We're going to cover ethics. We're going to talk about what generative AI is. Stephen's going to give us a little bit of primer on that. And then we're going to go into real world tools, a lot of different tools of how you can leverage the latest software, a lot of it powered by AI, to help you with automating discovery, speeding up analysis of documents, helping you in your briefing, helping you in depositions. That's going to be a big part of this presentation. Everything from getting ready to take them, getting ready to defend them, the live deposition itself, and some tools you can use during a deposition, and then all sorts of tools that you can use after the deposition to really leverage testimony in your case. So it should be very, very informative. Hopefully you'll stay with us to the end. If not, if you have to drop off early, we will have a recap of this, and you can also feel free to email Stephen or me. We're happy to share thoughts. We have a AI prompt guide for working with depositions that will be emailed to you after this presentation. So be on the lookout for that as well. So Stephen, let's tell them what we're trying to not teach them today.
Right. And look, we've all seen the headlines, right? Lawyers getting sanctioned for citing fake cases, AI making up citations out of thin air. And just a quick story. Had actually this happened in one of my cases in El Paso, where a defense counsel for an unnamed insurance company filed a response to my affirmative summary judgment on negligence and their affirmative defenses. And when I'm reading through it, these cases, these citations, they're too perfect. They're red flags to me everywhere. The case supposedly said exactly what he needed them to say, which never happens in real life, right? So I pull the cases, and sure enough, they don't say what he's claiming, and not even close, not even on the right topic. And so, I firmly believe in the principles that a BOTA stands for. I'm an BOTA attorney. And so I call him up and say, hey, these cases don't support your argument. They don't say anything of what you've cited to the court. But, here's the thing, he was stubborn and wanted to push forward. So I had to point that out for the court that these cases don't actually say that stuff. And that's the kind of reputational harm that lingers. Judges remember, opposing counsel remembers. And if a case is too good to be true, it probably is. This is exactly what we need to understand how to use these tools properly. It's not worth the risk of your reputation or your client's case.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of being a young associate and having a partner say, I know there's a case that exists on this topic. I think it holds exactly what we need. Go find me that case. Now the risk is they're going to find it, but it may not really exist, or it may not really say what they think it's going to say. So we're going to give you some guides on tools that you can use to leverage AI in a responsible way to get case law, and then give you some warnings of what not to do. So the case is on the screen. This is just one example. Stephen, I know we've given a few presentations together. I can't remember if this is the one from your case or maybe Chase's case, but none of these cases on the screen actually exist, right?
Right. I think these are actually from that one case in Florida where that attorney got sanctioned pretty publicly. These are those cases. The citations look real. They might even be real cases, but they're not what the cases stand for.
Right. And so that goes to, so we're going to cover a little bit of ethics. We said we would. There's really three core concepts here that apply when we're talking about the rise of AI software and how to use it responsibly. One is the duty of confidence. And so that's part of probably why you're attending this webinar today. One is to gain an advantage, but two is so you learn more about these tools and can become more competent in using them or knowing when not to use them. The second is the duty of communication. We have to make sure that our clients are kept informed on what we're doing on their cases, right? And that includes the types of tools that we're using. I have, if anyone's interested, shoot me an email, Karl with a K at Skribe.ai. I have a sample AI clause for your engagement letters if you'd like it, patterned after the Texas rules as well as the American Bar Association's recommendations. But that's one way to inform your clients, is to put it in your engagement letters that you may use software, including but not limited to generative AI, to help advance their causes. And here are the safeguards that you're going to use to make sure you do so in a responsible way. Which takes me to the third one, and that's the duty of confidentiality. Some of the things we're going to show you today are examples of using case information, including potentially medical records, potentially other, information about a client's claims or their injuries, in AI, but doing it in a responsible way. So the same way that we store, a lot of us store our case files in a cloud-based practice management system, or we use Office 365 or Google to help with our emails and our document storage. You can do the same thing with some of these AI tools. You just have to make sure that they're not training on your data. And one of the surest ways to avoid that is to make sure you're using a reputable vendor, and B, that you're paying for it. Not always true, but a lot of times, if you're not paying for it, that means you are the product. And a lot of free AI tools typically do train on data you submit. So go ahead and pay for those plans. It is well worth the price of admission to get some higher privacy and confidentiality safeguards in place. The one thing to be mindful of, more and more judges are starting to get a little, I guess you would say, cautious about whether attorneys are using generative AI in their briefing, because you are seeing those press releases and news reports. I think there was one just literally a couple of weeks ago from a very prominent, top 20 law firm, where someone had gotten caught citing cases that didn't exist, or for propositions that didn't exist. And so what we're starting to see are judges who want you to attest that if you did use a tool, and this is Judge Starr's certification requirement, that if you did use it, that you checked it for accuracy. You check the brief's facts for accuracy, you check the cases and what they stand for accuracy. And so just be on the lookout for that. I don't know that any of these judge-specific requirements are necessarily needed, in my opinion. I think this duty already exists. Like, we should be checking everything we file with the court for accuracy, but this doesn't prohibit you from using it. So I think that is a really good step here by Judge Starr. It's just saying, if you do use it, you're going to certify that you've checked it. There was some discussions at the Federal Fifth Circuit, about whether the court should adopt a rule prohibiting lawyers from using AI, or putting certain kind of safeguards around it, or certain hurdles around it. The court ultimately decided not to issue a rule. And what they said was that, lawyers already have a duty of candor and a duty to check their briefs that they file with the court. And I used AI is not going to be a forgivable excuse if the attorneys just say, "Oh, sorry, judge, I used AI. I didn't realize that these cases didn't exist." Stephen, I know it sounds like you've actually dealt with it, firsthand. Hopefully, it hasn't happened in any of your other cases recently.
No, I think people are starting to get used to this a little bit more. But just be cautious. Don't put your reputation on the line. For a retainer. If a client is saying, well, I want you to make these arguments. At the end of the day, it's your reputation. And so it's not worth the risk. It's not worth the money. Reputation's really hard to build and really easy to destroy.
100% agreed. Well, Stephen, you're going to take this and give us a short 101 on
Sure.
what the heck is generative.
So here's the thing about large language models, LLMs. That's crucial to understand and think of it like a really fast calculator for words. When I type, the sky is with a blank, what's actually happening behind the scenes is that the AI breaks down every word into numbers, basically converting language into math. Then it looks at patterns from literally billions of sentences it's seen throughout its training. It's calculating, okay, I've seen the sky is ... What came next? Blue appeared 85% of the time, bright maybe 10%, green 5%. It's not actually sitting there thinking, oh yeah, the skies are blue because of light refraction. It's not conscious, at least not yet. It's pure statistical pattern matching. Every word gets a probability score, and it picks from the highest scoring options. So think of it like kind of like autocomplete or autocorrect on steroids. Your phone predicts the next word based on what you've typed before, right? What these large language models like Claude, ChatGPT, and some of the others we'll talk about, it does this within the entire internet's worth of text patterns, calculating millions upon millions of probabilities per second. That's why it can sound so human and convincing. It's incredibly good at mimicking how humans typically write, but it's why it can confidently cite a case that doesn't exist.
And
Just
go ahead, Stephen. Sorry.
go ahead, Carl.
No, I was going to say, and one thing that Stephen doesn't know is it is getting so good not only at predicting words, it's also getting good at visual design. And what I didn't tell Stephen before we started today is this slide was actually generated
Oh,
using
cool.
AI. So I just told AI that we were going to be doing a presentation to a group of legal professionals, and we wanted a slide that could illustrate how generative AI works. And it came up with this slide and designed all the visual content on the slide. So it really is kind of mind-blowing how powerful it's getting and how fast that's happening. So we're going to give you some use cases of how to use it in your practice. And we're going to start with, I think this is kind of like, I consider this easy lifting for AI, but it's still pretty impressive if you haven't used it for these purposes. So Stephen's going to talk to us a little bit about summarizing documents and also creating timelines.
Sure. So you can give these, large language models. This one we're looking at on the screen is Thomson Reuters Co-Counsel. That is a reputable brand. You can give these programs, these software, and upload information and ask it to summarize medical records, information, petition, incident report, kind of the whole package, and then ask it to draft discovery requests from certain parties' perspective or defendant or depot outline. Here, if I'm going into a deposition, I may have a conversation with this large language model about the facts of the case, my notes, some information, and then put together an outline that has the points and focus that I need to do to make sure that I prove my case.
Yeah, and one of the really impressive things with Co-Counsel was originally developed by a company called Case Text, which for those of you who may have used it for research, it was very competitively priced, but they got acquired by Thomson Reuters and they shut down Case Text and incorporated the tech into their Co-Counsel product and some of their other legal research products. But what I really like about Co-Counsel is you'll see here as it summarized this document, this AI and law overview document. Not only did it give a summary, but it kind of footnoted back to the source. And so one of the things that I think can give attorneys and paralegals peace of mind when they're finding an AI tool to work with is make sure that source of truth is always one click away. And so you could throw, one document at CoCounsel, you could throw 100 documents at CoCounsel. They even have options to connect it into a database and do like almost full-blown e-discovery, and you can summarize a lot of information. But the really cool thing I think is that it always links you to the source of truth, and that's true here in the timeline feature that they have, where you can upload a whole bunch of documents to it, ask it to create a timeline based off what those documents show, and it will do that in a table format. You can download it into like Microsoft Excel or Microsoft Word, but it also just show you in the web application. All of these that we're going to show you today are, for the most part, are web applications. So you just access them through your web browser, usually Google Chrome or Safari or something like that. But again, in this timeline, not only does it have the dates, it also has little footnotes that if you click those, it will then open up the source file and show you the source document. So really, really cool way that they've approached it to not only summarize things for you, but make sure that the source of truth is one click away. But let's talk about legal research. I'm going to cover this one briefly because you can use AI to write briefs, to do legal research for you, and not worry about hallucinations. And the way to do that, I shouldn't say never worry. Even with these tools, you should always be double checking. But my strong recommendation is use a tool that is from a legal research provider. So whether that's Thomson Reuters Westlaw product, whether it's Lexis AI's, which is the one on the screen, VLEX and Fastcase have one as well, blanking on the name of it. But there are some tools where if you ask it a question, like the question on the screen, what is burden shifting? Under Title VII, you will get an answer. But what you're going to notice in these legal research platforms, you're not only going to get an answer with case law, you're going to get the case law citations, and those are clickable to where you don't have to worry as much that the case doesn't exist or maybe may have been hallucinated. And you can click into the case, and it will take you to the section where the proposition of the case supports what the text summary told you in the answer to your question. So it's a way, and I would say the price varies. I've seen anywhere from $200 to $400 a month per attorney. I mean, it kind of varies depending on size of firm. So it's going to be a little more expensive than some of your more consumer-focused large language model products like Claude or GPT or Gemini or Grok. But you get a little peace of mind, at least as it relates to case law. I would not use currently, as they currently exist, I would not use Claude or GPT for case law related work. I think someday they'll probably get to the point to where they fix the hallucination problem. But for now, I would recommend using one of the case law providers for that. But Stephen's going to talk to us a little bit about responsible ways you can use some of the less expensive tools like GPT. The Pro model, I think, which protects a lot of addresses a lot of the privacy concerns that you may have about using AI, is only about $25 per month per user. So very inexpensive, does not train on your data. Obviously study the terms and conditions yourself, but Stephen and I have, and one of our other attorneys that we present with has actually done a full-blown analysis of the privacy policies. And as long as you're on the paid plans, you should be in pretty good shape.
Right. What we're looking at the screen here is kind of an example of what you might look like using GPT. And here you upload an incident report, the petition, and on a work injury case and draft discovery based on this case, right? And it might give you a really good example as we play through of a good starting point.
Yeah, so you're going to see some prompts in the prompt guide that you'll get. There will be samples, including some of these samples, so you don't have to start from scratch. We've tried to come up with a lot of different scenarios that you would regularly face, and these are John Doe names just to protect. These are all from real cases, but to protect the privacy of the cases that Stephen and I were working on. But it is going to give not only high quality first drafts, and I think that's important to point out. You should think of it like a first draft, but it can give really high quality first drafts, and it will often tell you the purpose or the tactic or the source and why it is suggesting this type of discovery question. So, Stephen, I know you have another tool that you like to
Oh,
use for this as
yeah.
well, but
Yeah, I like to
talk
use
about
Claude.
how you use it in your workflow.
For sure. And I guess the best example I think of is kind of my last trial. I had a workers' comp retaliation case, zero offer case, difficult. My client had severe pre-existing mental health condition even before he started working with this company, including schizophrenia. And, talk about a challenge, right? How is a Texas jury going to perceive someone with schizophrenia? And so I used Claude, to help me think of voir dire topics I hadn't considered, ways to identify jurors who might have bias about mental health, without being too obvious. And then for opening, I had it help me craft a script that was compelling but easy to understand, to like a high school class. The real game changer was using it to draft direct examination questions based on my client's depo and my notes. So I needed to get across this complex concept of like extent, severity, duration of mental anguish without losing the jury or triggering negative stereotypes, right? So the AI helped me find ways to connect. And so I did that with my client and his mom and his wife, to talk about, how the termination led to homelessness, how that homelessness affected their relationship between each other. And I didn't want the jury to believe that he's like, crazy or has some sort of knee-jerk reaction. And we built empathy. And
Yeah.
here's the thing, right? The charge says don't feel sympathy, but it doesn't say anything about empathy. And those are different. And the AI, I think, helped me find that language, that approach, to make my client human and relatable despite these challenges. It's not perfect, but an incredible thought partner, for tackling these kinds of complex issues.
Yeah, it's fantastic. We're going to give some witness prep examples in a minute, but Stephen, I kind of like that one so much that next time you and I present together, we need to whip up a slide or two on that
Okay.
story and just kind of change some of the names a little bit. But it's a great use case. We're going to just be able to get through all this stuff. I'm going to push this forward a little bit more on brief writing. This is an interesting tool, BriefCatch. I haven't personally used it yet, but I was impressed enough with it for those of us who do a lot of brief writing, and some of you, some of you probably saying, "Yuck, I don't want to do it. If I can avoid it, I don't want to do any brief writing." But some of you may do a lot of brief writing, so I figured I would share this. This is actually a little demo video, so Steven's going to give me a thumbs up if he can hear the audio on it when I hit play. But I think it does a good job at giving an overview of how it works. And the one thing that impressed me about it is you can bake it into Microsoft Word. So it actually ends up living as a little button on the top of Microsoft Word, and you're going to see the tray off to the right in just a second. So Stephen, give me a thumbs up if you can hear the audio.
Negative.
Ideas on how to
Wait, there it is.
arguments.
You're not getting out any audio from that?
It's a little bit choppy.
Okay, let me turn it up just a hair. Hold on just a moment.
Microsoft Word or Outlook. You'll get instant ideas on how to hone your arguments, project confidence in your prose, and win for clients in the courts. Each suggestion also comes with detailed explanations and real-world examples that make writing fun and even inspiring. With just one click, tell BriefCatch which suggested edit to make for you. You can even decide what you most want to improve, just find mistakes, or make your prose shine. The best part is knowing that BriefCatch's 20,000 plus suggestions are from a top legal writing expert. What's more, our new patent-pending citation check is the first tool that will fix your citation format effortlessly. Many users also love saving hours with Express Editing, which applies all approved suggestions at once as tracked changes. Feeling stuck? No.
So I really like that last feature. I call that the easy button, right, Stephen? We were talking about it earlier. Like,
Fix
I
it.
don't need to everyone. You say this is amazing software based off one of the top legal writers in the nation. Let's just accept the changes and move on. But in all seriousness, I thought that was a pretty cool tool for people that do a lot of brief writing. And the fact that it can do your Blue Book citations is probably a relief for those of us who it's been too many years since law school or law review to remember exactly what the Blue Book form is for things. But I'm going to share another use case. We're going to dive into depositions, and we're going to spend a fair amount of the rest of our time on depositions. this is a use case that I used myself, and let me explain why. So this product is by Google. It's called NotebookLM, and it has a lot of different potential features, but here's why I used it. I had a series of depositions, I think it was 6 or 7, that I was driving to Odessa, Texas for, and I actually had not finished preparing for the depositions. I was a little bit behind. I know that probably never happens to any of you. But I had a long drive from Austin to Odessa, and I thought, how can I make use of that drive in a way that I could maybe learn a little bit about all the witnesses that are involved in this case? And so what I did was I took some of the case content, incident statements, recorded statements, some of the allegations from the petition, basically a lot of the different pieces of the puzzle. And I put them into NotebookLM, and hopefully you'll be able to hear it okay. But what NotebookLM can do is generate kind of a mock podcast to where you can actually listen to a story being told between two hosts bantering back and forth about the content that you uploaded to it. So this was a really kind of neat and somewhat novel way to get me ready for the deposition.
And these people aren't real. Like these people don't exist. These voices are not human, and it's super super impressive. When Karl first showed me, it kind of blew me away.
Yeah, yeah. And hopefully they'll get to where they can expand it even more and even more, like to where I could really maximize it. I think this was about a 45-minute podcast total, but it really did help familiarize me with the different players and what their roles were, so that when I did get to the hotel, I was kind of already primed on what to look for. So I'm just going to play the very beginning of it so you can get a sense of what the heck it is I'm talking about. So Stephen, give me a thumbs up if you can hear it.
All right, so we're diving into this personal injury case against Family Dollar today.
Yeah.
You sent a ton of material over: witness interviews, expert reports, legal filings. It's a lot. A real legal drama unfolding.
Yeah, a lot of moving pieces for sure.
Our mission with this deep dive is to really break it all down, analyze those witness accounts, understand everybody's role and, any potential biases,
Yeah.
and then ultimately try to uncover the strengths and weaknesses of Family Dollar's case.
Yeah, what's really striking is the number of people involved and then all the conflicting accounts of what actually went down. It's a real challenge to try to piece together the truth,
That's what we're here for.
but that's what we do.
Exactly. To set the stage.
All right, so that kind of gives you a sense of what the hosts were going to talk about. And I was the one who kind of told them, here's what I want you to talk about. I want you to go through the inconsistencies of what these people are saying, the strengths and weaknesses for the parties involved. And so it was a very surprisingly useful information that really did kind of just let me kick back and listen to two entertaining AI podcast hosts talk about my case the day before the deposition as I was driving. And there's other things you can do with it. So that was kind of an audio overview. So on the screen, you can see that in the notes section, you can generate a study guide where it will actually create questions and answers, like think back to your law school or college days. I've actually looked at it, and it was pretty helpful for kind of getting me ready for taking depositions. You can generate an FAQ, you can generate a timeline, you can even generate a very interactive mind map. And so this is an example of what that looks like. And you can dive down really deep on this, but it will basically break down, based on the information that you feed it, all the different kind of key topics or key players. And then when you click them, you get more and more information. So for the incident, for example, where did it happen? What equipment was involved? What did the claimant do? What did the witnesses say about it? What was the immediate aftermath? So pretty impressive mind mapping that, would otherwise take hours and hours and hours to have a staff member try to mind map a case for you. It just does in a matter of seconds. So we're going to talk about deposition outlines. And so I know this is one of Stephen's favorite tools, so I'm gonna let him set it up.
Yeah, so you probably heard of ChatGPT, right? Let me introduce you to Claude. Think of it as ChatGPT's equally capable cousin, but with some key differences that you kind of need to understand. Its parent company is called Anthropic. It's backed by Amazon. First, what Claude doesn't do, it doesn't create images like ChatGPT or their company called, their software called Dolly. But speaking of visual AI, we're seeing some incredible advances. If you have Instagram, my Instagram is jujitsu_lawyer. I always post these stories because there's some really, really cool text to video that's happening. OpenAI's program is called Sora. Google's is called VO3. Super cool stuff where you can type text and it's going to create really, really high level video. And I think that you're going to start seeing that in the next several years for demonstratives. But here's where Claude shines. Reliability, capacity. Now, AI or large language models measure text in what's called tokens. Think of a token as like 3/4 of a word. So litigation might be 3 tokens, while the is just one. It's how these language models break down and process language. So Claude can handle about 200,000 tokens in a single conversation. In lawyer speak, that's roughly 150,000 words or about 500 pages of text. You can upload medical records, multiple depositions, and may still have room. Whereas with ChatGPT, even with their most recent GPT-4 model, you're looking at about 128,000 tokens max. So the capacity is a major difference. And to me, in practical purposes, with Claude, I feel like I can upload more data, analyze longer conversations, and with ChatGPT, you might have to break those things apart. At least in my personal experience, I like to use it for these kind of cases.
And and they're all increasing their token sizes. I feel like every couple of months. And I want to say Google Gemini, which is a competitor to GPT and Claude, I think they just announced maybe 1 million token size limit for their paid plans. A pretty significant amount. And so let's go through an example of what you can do with Claude today. So Stephen, you want to set this up, or you want me to set it?
Yeah, so let me show you kind of a real world example about how powerful this can be. This is a personal injury case, a workplace injury where the opposing side brought a safety expert. And we need, as an example, to depose their expert and potentially challenge their opinions. So you can upload both expert reports, their report and let's say Dr. Strange's rebuttal report, and ask it to draft a deposition outline. But here's the key: it's it's not just asking it to write some questions. We gave it strategic objectives, undermine credibility, expose methodology flaws, contrast with OSHA standards, leverage our expert's opinion, identify any sort of Daubert opportunities. And the AI understood the assignment. It created a strategic outline, as you can see in our next slide of kind of how this works. It's not just random questions. And this is kind of what we mean when we say it's a thought partner. In 30 seconds, it's able to give us what would have taken, a newer associate hours to draft. And we can just use this to kind of refine and improve based on your experience.
Yeah, and I was just going to add, we'll share these prompts with you, and the connection with the prompt guide, which will be coming in your inbox. If should be later today, but the goal, and it's going to be a living document, so something you can bookmark, because I'm going to be building it out very robustly to cover all sorts of different types of cases, all different types of witnesses. But the goal is to do some of the lifting for you so that you have a prompt that results in a really quality output. And so you'll see on the screen, these are examples of questions that are pretty, like for draft version 1, this is a great start. And we've, prompted it in a way that it's comparing and contrasting expert reports, exposing maybe potential deficiencies or failures by the expert who is being deposed. And so it's a pretty impressive tool. Again, the only word of caution I would give you is when it starts citing statutes or rules or cases, which it may do from time to time when you're feeding it expert reports, just check those. Make sure, like here, it's citing some different OSHA related regs. Go back and check that. Make sure that regulation says what the outline is suggesting that it says. But it's a very impressive tool for that. I would say it helps me get ready for fact witness depositions, but it really shines when you're talking about expert depositions and trying to take concepts that can be complex and really making them much, much more simple. So it's one of the ways that I like to use it. I know this next example, I think that, let's see, hold on. Did I skip? Oh, I skipped over. This next example, I don't think Stephen had seen yet. And so this was another use case related to depositions that I was thinking, well, gosh, it's doing a really good job getting me ready for the deposition. I wonder if it could help me get my client ready for the deposition, or my witness, maybe some other fact witness in the case or an expert. And so, Stephen, you want me to go through this one? You want to go through this one?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So this was, again, these prompts, we're happy to share the prompts, but the goal here was to develop a prompt where it could create a prep guide not for me to give my client, right? Because in most jurisdictions, anything the witness reviews would have to be produced. But this is a guide for me to use as I prep the client. And so it was, I'll just show you real quick kind of what it looked like. So again, giving it examples of what I want, right? I want the key areas of anticipated questioning. I want sample questions, maybe answer frameworks, like ways that I can try to prepare this witness to answer things in a way that's consistent with, A, the truth, but B, also framing them in the best light. And then just some of it's kind of deposition 101 type stuff, but weaving it into the facts of the case. And so with that prompt, and of course, the names have all been changed to protect the innocent. Here's an example of what a prep guide could look like for you to prep your witness to get ready for a deposition. And so I think it's, a lot of us have maybe sample prep guides or sample ways that we do our prep, but, if you feed it some case information, you'd be surprised. It will come up with different tactics, different angles that even the best litigators, we can't remember everything all the time. And so it's a very, very powerful tool for trying to get your witness ready to testify. Again, just be sure that you're the one reviewing it and kind of talking from it and not sending it to the witness. Otherwise, you could potentially be making it a document that would have to be produced. So again, very, very, very powerful example. This is based on a real case, but again, the names have been changed. So I'm familiar enough with the case to tell you this is a quality prep. Like I would happily send one of my associates with a copy of this guide to prep a witness. And then Stephen's alluded to this. So Stephen, how do you think about these tools as you're working on your cases?
So a lot of people are afraid of them, right? But understand these aren't your replacement. They're your thought partners. Think of them like a really eager first-year associate who's read everything, but needs supervision. They can't help you. They can help you, sorry, draft motions, test out different argument strategies, even help you prep for voir dire. But just like with an eager associate, you need to review everything that you're applying based on your experience. The AI does the heavy lifting, and you as the lawyer can do the thinking and use your experience. And the bottom line is the technology's here. It's not going anywhere. And you can't just hand it off to like your IT department or your young associate to teach you. The genie's out of the bottle. You need to understand it for yourself, and you need to know how it works and what it can do, and more importantly, what it can't do. I like to think about Blockbuster, right? They had every opportunity to adapt when Netflix showed up, and they didn't. They were like, nah, people will always come to our stores. They like going to Blockbuster. We have membership cards. And we all know how that ended, right? The legal profession is having its Netflix moment right now. The lawyers who learn to use these tools, who understand their strengths, their limitations, use them effectively while avoiding these pitfalls, they're going to have a massive, massive advantage than the ones who say, well, I'll figure it out later. Or, that's just not how we've always done it. They're going to be explaining to their clients, I imagine, that do hourly work, why their bills are twice as high, why their work takes 3 times as long. And so the way that I think about it, in short, is that it's not about replacing good lawyering, it's about amplifying it.
Yeah.
You've got to learn it now, not later.
That's really well said. In fact, I'm going to give one other quick story. Voir dire, I've used it to take panel questionnaires. When they bring in the panel, a lot of jurisdictions, at least in Texas, will give you the forms either digitally. Some jurisdictions are now doing it electronically or in paper, and then you can scan it in if you bring a mobile scanner with you. I've actually used that to help pick a jury and to take the jury panel questionnaires, have them analyzed with AI, and have it suggest which panel members are likely to be good for party A or party B.
Oh, wow. Did you get those in advance, or did you get them the moment of?
In advance, but not
Okay.
much time. You had to be ready. I had to be ready to maybe an hour worth of time.
Wow.
30 minutes to an hour to quickly, have a prompt ready and have it analyze it. And then during the lunch break, refine the opening statement based on who was on the jury to resonate more with those people. So if you're thinking quick, you can use this stuff in a very powerful way. So let's shift to taking the depositions. We talked a lot about prep. And so, Skribe is the sponsor of this webinar. I am one of the founders of Skribe. And so let me share with you a little bit what Skribe does and kind of how we see the legal industry and the way testimony is captured and analyzed, how we see that changing. So ultimately, I think back to some of my first depositions. Video has always been kind of either A, optional pre-COVID, or B, hard to work with. And Scribe really sees video as a competitive advantage that you can leverage to make your case stronger and to make a bigger impact. And so ultimately what we've built at Scribe is a testimony platform that gives you video synced to your transcript with the ability to leverage AI if you want, with drafting and chatting, and create video clips just by highlighting text, all the same day you take the deposition. So you can literally take the deposition in the morning and within an hour have a screen that looks like this where you can begin to interact with your depositions.
Or less.
Or less. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
less than an hour. Just depends on the length of the deposition itself.
Right.
But really, there's three key components here. One is scheduling. It's super simple. Two is the event itself, capturing the testimony. And then three is analyzing it. And so we're going to talk through those and kind of explain what to expect in a Scribe deposition and how to leverage the software to improve some of your deposition workflows. So for the scheduling, Scribe has sample notices. So the depositions are non-stenographic under the Texas rules, under the federal rules, and Scribe has sample notices for every jurisdiction. So if you need one, just shoot me an email or shoot support@Skribe.ai an email. But it is important that you notice the deposition properly, the way you intend to do it. That way the other party, if they want to bring a stenographer, they have the option to do that, which is the way most states, as well as the federal rules, set up non-stenographic depositions. And so what to expect during the capture, like what in the live event itself. First of all, you're not on your own. There will be a certified notary from the jurisdiction who acts as a liaison to swear in the witness, to facilitate the attorneys going on and off the record, to gather the exhibits, to take down unique spellings of words or phrases, because the transcripts are not only created using ASR, automated speech recognition, they are also professionally proofread and legally formatted. And I'll show you what one of those looks like in just a minute. Scribe is optimized for remote or remote hybrid deposition. So it's an ISV partner with Zoom. So it's a Zoom powered event. No need to learn new software. And it's also nice because most people, witnesses, as well as most law firms, are very familiar with Zoom and know how to join it. And you only pay for time on the record. You're not charged an appearance fee. You're not charged, if there's breaks or delays. And there's redundant recording. So you don't have to worry about, what happens if this Zoom crashes or what happens if Zoom, the primary recording doesn't work. There's a backup method always in place, recording it as a secondary method. And then as soon as the deposition is over, the same day, you get access to a web application. We're going to demo that in a minute, so I won't kind of belabor the point now. Within 5 days, you get a certified non-stenographic deposition record. So you'll get a final transcript that's been human reviewed and legally formatted, and Scribe facilitates the review and sign process. So you don't have to hassle with that yourself. A copy of the non-stenographic record and the transcript will go out to the witness or the witness's attorney, and they'll have an opportunity to review it and make any changes if they see anything that needs to be changed or clarified. This is an example of kind of what that looks like. This is from a deposition from a couple of years ago, actually one that my firm took, but it's very familiar look and feel like any other deposition transcript you've ever seen. And then one of the benefits of this is it's a modern approach, and there's a lot of cost savings baked in here. So this is a real side-by-side comparison of a national court reporting association. I won't name them, but this is from an actual invoice that my firm paid. We needed to get the transcript quickly, so we paid for the rush charges plus the video charges and all of the other charges on the pricing sheet, and versus Scribe's price. And by the time you added it all up, it could have been anywhere from $3,700 to $5,400 for this deposition from the National Court Reporting Company, whereas with Scribe, it would have been just above $1,000. So significant cost savings, no matter which way you slice it. And
Yeah, and I would just add to that, Karl, real quick, that as a plaintiff attorney, a lot of times we're looking at costs, and is there any costs that we can tie to a case that it's not something that we just have to carry, right? And here, there's these costs that are tied specifically to this case. It's not like a subscription that I'm paying for to take these types of depositions, but it's a way that I can pass on that cost to not create such an overhead problem. Um, and,
Gotcha.
and I'd also like to just add, since we're on this, that, I the goal of this is to make it more efficient. Not every case makes sense to have to spend $5,000 on depos and videos, especially with the smaller workers' comp retaliation cases. Not every case is a death case, right? And we have to be mindful of our clients' expenses. And so, you know, I'm not trying to say that there isn't a need for court reporters. We're not trying to put them out of business. I'm not an owner or have any sort of ownership interest in Scribe, but I appreciate how it's making it more efficient for my clients. And so I just wanted to add that since we're talking about those costs.
I really appreciate it. And Scribe actually just launched a new product a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, I guess now, time flies, called Link, which gives you the ability to add to a deposition you're attending that maybe you aren't the noticing party, but you're attending it. You can add a firm branded meeting recorder bot that will go into that Zoom or Teams or Meet deposition and record a copy for you for $29 per hour. So very cost-effective tool to get a copy of a deposition that you attend. You're not the scheduling attorney, and you get a rough transcript and all the tools I'm about to show you. So let me actually show you what that would look like if you used either Scribe to host your own deposition with Scribe, or if you sent Scribe's link bot into another deposition that you're attending. This is the experience that you get the same day the deposition is over, within an hour or less. As Steven said, it's often faster than that. But here's what it looks like. So you can highlight the transcript and create a clip.
When you're doing research, like you're a research assistant, I believe you said for Harvard and Yale, is that correct? Yes.
So
When you were-
really simple way to create a clip. Like if you can highlight text, you can create your own video clips now. You can rename the clip, and then you can you can download it if you want to download that clip as an MP4 file, or you can add it to a playlist. And when you add it to a playlist, we'll add this one to a playlist for expert qualifications. And then we'll add the other clip above it to the same playlist. And once you've got them in a playlist, it's very simple then to kind of rearrange. You can drag and drop to
research. Like you're a research assistant.
You can just drag and drop if you want to change the sequence of those clips.
I'm a human factors consultant.
And what does that mean?
And then you can download the entire playlist. So it'll actually stitch together those video files, or it'll create a share link. And I'm gonna show you what that looks like for the recipient. When I say share link, I mean a URL. Think of like when someone sends you a YouTube video or some type of TikTok or something like that. They're sending you a website address, and then when you click it, it opens up and plays the corresponding video. Scribe works the same way when you want to share clips. And so if we go to this example, it's going to show you, here's what the recipient sees once you've shared the clip. So
what do the words on the wet fork cone say?
Caution wet fork.
So we're going to take it, create the share link. So this is your interface right now, but then we're going to open a tab. This is what the recipient would see. They would see the video.
And what do the words on the wet fork cone say?
Caution wet fork.
And then if you need to go full screen,
And
you can go full screen.
can you explain to the jury, to the extent it needs to be explained, what?
And then the same thing is true for a playlist. If you wanted to share a playlist, you can go to that one we created earlier. You can click the share link. It'll copy the link to your clipboard, and then the recipient will have the playlist.
And what does that mean or involve?
So human factors.
And so you'll see it kind of shows the status of the clip, this little blue line here. It'll play through this clip and then the next clip. I mean, you could have 5, 10, 20, 50 clips, and it would play clip after clip after clip. And so it's a really convenient way to begin to organize your video testimony so that you can leverage it.
And those are all hosted through Scribe. Like I don't have to worry about having my own web page or cloud where I need to pay for this to be hosted. Those are there. And I've done this countless times, especially on car wreck cases where 30 minutes after the depo is done, I'm sending a new Stowers demand with my depot clips, or I'll even use it in the afternoon. Like if I'm deposing a corporate rep in the morning, in the afternoon, I've got the clips ready where I think their witness is probably going to say, well, that's not what they say. And I'm able to refer back to the video and then have that on the Zoom as well, where he's watching what his supervisor just said, you know.
Yeah, that's great. And I see some questions have popped up in the Q&A. I'm going to answer a few of those now. So is there an errata sheet with digital signatures workflow of sorts? The answer is yes, there is a review and sign, AKA errata sheet process. It is sent as a PDF. So you're certain the witness or the witness's attorney is certainly welcome to fill that out digitally, but they can also print it if they want to do it the old-fashioned way and scan it back. But there is a errata sheet process. And then another question that popped up in the Q&A is, can you talk a little bit about where we are on admissibility and authentication and cross? I'm going to take each one of those as I best understand the question. There is an admissibility section on Skribe's website that breaks down the rules in all the various jurisdictions. The way that Skribe is set up is it's giving the attorneys the power to non-stenographically record depositions using their own computers and their own software. Skribe is just helping facilitate that process, make it a lot easier to take depositions non-stenographically and actually make them useful. And so again, the admissibility lies in the non-stenographic deposition rules in your state, or if you're in federal court. Happy to share with you. We have blog articles on it. We have the case law on it, the rules on it. Happy to share that with you. When it comes to authenticating it, in most jurisdictions, you can file either the video or a transcript of the non-stenographic record. And so in Texas, that's Rule 203.6 of the Texas Rules of Civil Procedure. Federal rule, I'm blanking on the exact federal rule at the moment. It might be under 199. Well, no, that's Texas rules. I have it. Just check with me afterwards. I can send you the rules. But yeah, and then as far as cross-examining, I think you can use the transcript if you'd like. I find it very effective to use the video. And so I will typically create clips in advance of the segments where I think I might need to impeach the witness so that I have the video clips ready. And again, with Skribe, it just takes, literally minutes instead of hours or thousands of dollars to create impeachment clips and have them ready. Or you can even create them on the fly if you need to create them on the fly in the web application.
And that's how I first learned about it, right? Like we had a non-subscriber together in an arbitration, and Karl's team is just destroying my client, and he's control finding just using the application in Skribe where they're talking about this and it ready just on the fly without even a crop. That's where it is. Did you say this? Have you ever testified differently? And it was just a really powerful tool that I thought made a big difference in arbitration. I thought I'm never taking another regular deposition.
Yeah, and that actually brings me to the next question. So the question was with the video clips, I'm seeing links for each clip. Could you create a smart outline or a mind map for cross and then have links baked into the corresponding clips? The answer is you absolutely can, and users have. I mean, I've seen page and line designations where you get page number, line number, and now there's a new column with a link to play the video. So there's also you can insert those links into any of your work product so that the corresponding video is one click away. So here's a couple of use cases on the screen. The one that's been up for a few minutes is brief writing. So this is an example of a motion for summary judgment filed in Dallas, Texas, and the video is embedded into the brief so that the judge or the staff attorney could click the link. It was also the full URL was in the footnote if for some reason they needed to copy and paste it, so that they could watch the corresponding video. And then Stephen, of course, just mentioned settlement demands. I really am a big believer of the power of video. The tone, the emotion, the assessing how a witness is going to play to a jury or a judge or an arbitrator. Those are things that you just can't get from black and white text on a page. And so if you start leveraging video, I think you're going to see better results. And I know Stephen's been doing that. He talked about it a little bit. This is an example of putting it in your demand letter. And so we're going to actually show you how you can use the AI chat feature within Skribe to actually generate some of those things for you. And so this is going to show you a couple of different examples. On this one, we're just going to ask the AI, for what did the witness ultimately say or the expert ultimately say about the sufficiency of the warning cone. So this is just a simple example. So we'll prompt it. It will then analyze the entire deposition top to bottom to try to find the answer to that question. This is also a good way to either refresh your memory on a deposition that took place a while back, or maybe one of your team members took the deposition and you weren't even there. The thing you're going to notice, though, is you also get the
In
video.
your expert opinion, was this an adequate warning?
Yes.
And then if you like that clip, you can save it to your clip list just by clicking the little camcorder.
In your expert opinion, was this an adequate warning?
Yes.
So you see, I mean, the cool thing about that is you got the answer, but then it actually created a clip for you where the witness was talking about the question that you posed. So it really speeds up the analysis process. I want to show you one other or two other examples. One is summaries. So this is the default summary that I'm going to show you. In fact, I'll let it start generating kind of the default summary of the deposition here. But the thing that I would encourage you to do is play with those, because you can prompt it to do a personalized summary. So this is kind of the way Skribe kind of sets up summaries is executive summaries. Like, we're not looking to give you 50 more pages to read of a 200-page deposition. We're looking to give you the highlights, the strengths, the weaknesses, the substance.
First, I reviewed the video so I could get a general understanding.
And with your summary, you're always going to get some video clips as well of some of the relevant content. And then you can copy and paste the summary if you want to drop it into Microsoft Word just by hitting the little copy button down at the bottom right. But what I often do is I have a different style of summary that I like for certain clients. So I just have that saved, and I will then drop it into Skribe and tell it, hey, here is the format I want this summary created in. And then it'll do exactly what I ask it to do. So it's a really clever way to do that. And then the other tool that I've been using it for, another way that I've been using it, is to generate discovery. So, you know, one of the things that I know a lot of us, at least I've experienced, is I go to a deposition, something comes up that somebody should have produced, in my opinion, before the deposition, or something new is discussed in the deposition that I haven't really sent any written discovery on yet. And so this is a way, this is dark mode, if you're curious as to why it looks different. You can just, that's a setting you can change in Chrome. But this is an example of taking testimony from a deposition, and I'm prompting it here on the right. And again, I'll share all these prompts with you, but I'm prompting it. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to draft 10 RFPs, 5 ROGs, and 10 RFAs on some of the topics that were discussed in detail in this deposition. And so it will then generate drafts on the topics that I asked it to generate request on. And then I can just copy and paste them into Microsoft Word and tinker with them a little bit, add, subtract. But again, a very quick and easy way to get discovery drafted. And I think Steven's used it for this, or I know we've talked about it. You can even have it draft a demand letter based on the content of the deposition.
Yeah, I've done that. I've had it kind of rate the witness on how it thinks it might appear in front of a jury, rate the attorney, rate myself, right? I try to get better, right? And I don't have an ego, and if it gives me tips on how to ask questions in a better way, or if it says that rate me out of 1 out of 10 on this depo, I try to go back and do that for each depo to see, like, am I getting better, to have like a scorecard, right, of myself, and make sure that I'm continuously growing and improving. And so I think it's a really cool tool that I use that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I see another question popped up. How strong is AI in terms of search versus GPT or others? That answer is not a secret. So we're leveraging one of the large language models at Skribe for the AI chat. We are using one of OpenAI's API models. It's not the exact same as GPT, but it is quite similar. We're kind of platform agnostic. We are testing some of the other large language models as well. Our goal is to give you the best one at the best price. And so that's why we're currently using OpenAI's for that. But it is a privacy-centric version where privacy rights are kind of baked into the terms of the enterprise API that we leverage. And let me click this, answer that question. And then the other thing we were gonna touch on briefly before we wrap it up, we actually have a new feature coming out. It's so new that I don't have a slide on it yet, but Steven's actually gotten a sneak peek and is gonna be doing a little bit of testing. If anyone else is interested in early access, just drop me an email, let me know. Happy to get you set up with the demo. But Steven, why don't you talk about it a little bit?
So in my mind, this is
Pretty
gold.
excited about it.
This is the future. I'm super, super excited about it. And I think over the next couple of years, if you're not using this, then it's malpractice. So essentially, on one screen, you have your Zoom deposition. I got to beta test this week with one of their engineers. And on the left side, I have my portal that we looked at with the camera, except as I'm talking, it's showing me on my left screen the rough transcript live. Every word I'm saying is showing up. And on the right hand side of the column, instead of having three columns, you have the chatbot. So I'm able to ask follow-up questions like, how do I close the loop? What questions haven't I asked yet? Live. I don't have to wait for a break to like copy the transcript, um, captions, go into a different large language model, have multiple windows open. It's this. And I think that that's going to be the future because it's it's trained and it's able to think of things much quicker. We all know we have those times where you end a deposition, it's like, shucks, and like I should have asked that question. I forgot. That would have made my point stronger. I think that this is going to be standard in every deposition in the future.
Yeah, that's really helpful feedback, and we're excited to get that tool to the market very, very soon. I expect it will be very near future is what our head of product would want me to say. Don't promise a date, but it is coming really, really soon. We're testing it right now. And so, yeah, we'd love to have you do your next deposition with Scribe. We've done 2,000 depositions in 25 different states at this point. And we will be sending the AI prompt guide for depositions. It will be a living document. So if you see things that you think are missing or should be added, or you'd love to have us spend a little time on it, just drop me an email, let me know. Our goal is to really make it a resource that you bookmark on your internet browser, and that hopefully as it grows, you can grow your practice with it as well. There was also a question about defer pay that came up in the Q&A. So I'm going to address that. So Scribe does have a defer pay option. Just shoot an email to either me or the support team at Scribe and we can get you the details. I do not have them memorized, but it basically lets you defer payment on the deposition cost until significantly later, close of case or within X number of months. I think it may be 2 years, but don't hold me to that. I'm not the one in charge of marketing or selling that tool, but we can get you the answers on it. It's a good offering. And then there was one other question that came in, which was, will the chatbot functionality have access to a tranche of documents that would give it training similar to, for example, Claude perhaps, or GPT? And so the answer is, there are a lot of future features that are being requested in regards to what could AI look like as think of almost like a live assistant of sorts, so that as you're examining a witness, whether it's at a deposition, maybe even a trial or a hearing, what should a software, what do you want the software to be able to help you with? What does that workflow look like? What's helpful? What's potentially distracting? So certainly being able to add some of the key documents, maybe the exhibits, is high on the list of future requests that we're hearing. And then we have one other question that's come in, which is, I'm not a lawyer, but I'd like to review a case I've been involved in. Can this system use it to discover additional questions or approaches that should have been made? If I'm understanding the question correctly, if it's a live deposition or post deposition, you could use Scribe for that. You would need to do your deposition with Scribe or upload the audio or video file into Scribe post event. If it's just coming up with questions ahead of time, the other tools that we talked about, Claude and ChatGPT, would both be very good tools to potentially brainstorm on types of additional questions to consider or approaches to take for examining witnesses. So hopefully that helps Sonia, who posed that question. All right, folks, well, we are a little over time. We're just a little over an hour, so we're happy to answer any other questions. If anyone has any, feel free to drop them in the Q&A now. Otherwise, I want to say thank you very, very much to Stephen for co-presenting. This is the third or fourth time that we've co-presented in a variety of different venues and formats for, I think, San Antonio Bar Association, Capital Area Trial Lawyers Association, and it's certainly always a blast to have him join for the presentations. We did get one other question, so let me see if I can get my app up to look at the question. We have a question that came in. Do you use jury instructions in your depo prep? I have, and I think that is a great point to kind of start with the end in mind. Like, what are the questions going to be for the jury? And I think thinking through those questions and how to answer those questions as you're getting ready for Depo Prep is a great suggestion, something that maybe we didn't cover. I know we talked about voir dire and opening statement, but I love that. And the answer is yes, you should. You could do that. Go ahead,
And if
Steve.
I can add one more thing, definitely, especially in the workers' comp retaliation cases in Texas under Labor Code 451, I helped get the PJC updated. And as of April 15th, there's a new charge and a new instruction. And there's this burden shifting analysis where we've got to show a prima facie case, they've got to show a non-discriminatory reason for discharge, and then we've got to show using circumstantial evidence, knowledge, negative attitude, disparate treatment, reasons that their discharge is false. And so understanding that dynamic for the summary judgment, what is their explanation for the non-discriminatory reason for discharge? How do I get that? And making sure that I have all these other elements of circumstantial evidence that the PJC says I can use to prove my case to a jury, because juries are people you see, walking around Walmart, and they may not understand what retaliation or discrimination means. And so using the charge as best I can and getting them to answer those questions, I think is super important.
Yeah. Well, thank you all very much. I know we went a little bit over on time, but many of you stuck with us, so we certainly appreciate that. If you are interested in learning more about Scribe, you can visit Skribe.ai or scan the QR code on the screen. Again, big thanks to Stephen for joining me on this.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
I'll
Always.
look out for an email probably today, no later than tomorrow, with a copy of that GPT prompt guide for depositions that we talked about. That we'll talk about some of the tools that you can use with it in the guide itself. But really appreciate you joining today, and feel free to connect with Stephen on LinkedIn and me on LinkedIn as well. We always like connecting with other legal professionals and sharing ideas. So thank you all.